What are you gonna do, drown me in your tears?
I did not cry during that game. I had something in my eye.
I have to say that when I was looking through April releases and trying to figure out what should I send requests for, who should I try to interview, when I saw this movie, I hadn't heard of it, but there was one name that I recognized and it was yours. And I went, I know this name. Why do I know this name? You directed She's the Man.
I directed She's the Man. That's it right there. I directed that.
Which is one of my all-time favorite teen films. So I was like, I need to make an attempt to speak to this man. Because
I am honored beyond belief. Thank you so much.
So that in turn made me go look up behind the scenes things from the making of that movie. And one of the things that I heard some of the talent from that film say was that you really allow your actors to play creatively. And I was wondering if that's your general approach across all your movies, as opposed to that one being a comedy, which leaves more room for things like improv.
I come out of theater and still do theater. And one of the things in theater where we have, we have a stage that's empty and we have our actors and that's about it. Some props, some chairs. So I always want the actors to explore that space, and that's what keeps characters alive. And I find if we're too specific, sometimes you have to be for a stunt or a special effect to work. You really have to be, nope, don't move, turn your head that way, stop. But for everything else, you want it to feel alive. And having, I always want to work with great actors who we can say, here's the script, here's the book, here's the source material. This is sort of an area where I feel the scene. I'll usually work with them on some rough blocking. Sometimes it's, locked a little bit because the sun is dropping over there, or I have to hide an ugly trash can that's off on the corner. So you have from here to here to play. But a lot of times the more in rehearsal, I can talk with the actors and get a sense of what they're thinking. And then they can really explore. And having these opportunities in this film where you had so many great actors, sometimes I just sit at Video Village and smile because I thought whether they were breaking my heart or making me laugh or just challenging me as an audience member, I was just on the edge of my seat thinking, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Even if I knew what they were going to do.
So you mentioned that you have experience directing musicals. I was wondering if that created any sort of shorthand for you to be directing Phillipa Soo.
Probably just in our initial conversation. I had during the pandemic, I had met just so many amazing actresses for the role. And Phillipa was the last one I met. And I was a massive fan of Hamilton. And every time you meet an actor, you're like, oh, they could do this, that. Phillipa was the first one that I met that I was able to email everybody back and say, I just did a Zoom with Emma. And that made me know I was home. But yeah, in our initial conversations to be able to talk, we had mutual friends between Hamilton and like Heather's, and that conversation at least gets you into a language skill. And we'd certainly, in between takes, sometimes find ourselves talking about that. What was also great was Simu is just musically wildly talented. There's online right now, he is playing his guitar with Riley Keough, doing a duet with Daisy and the Six. So it's Taylor Jenkins Reid, World Collide, Daisy and One True Loves all together in one place. But yeah, it certainly helps finding a place where you can go. I'm always looking for some common ground. First time I talked to Simu, we talked about our casting director for One True Loves, Sarah Finn, who had done Shang-Chi and also did She's the Man. And so we were able to make those comparative conversations. And I'm always looking for some way to connect with an actor. Hopefully from there, you're just able to create new moments.
One True Loves, in the film, it has a very non-linear approach to sharing its timeline. Was that always the vision, or did it perhaps change in the editing process?
No, it was always, I think, started within Taylor's book I just loved. And Taylor wanted to write the screenplay along with her husband, Alex, who's a brilliant writer. And so we really wanted to stick closely with her storytelling. there was a lot in the book that's really in Emma's mind. And so how to bring that information forward. And it was really trusting Taylor's and Alex's kind of how they wanted to lay it out. Once we got into editorial, we're pretty close to what it was in the script. Every once in a while you move a scene around, or you think, I don't want to give that information away just yet, or you know what, the audience probably needs this, but we definitely stuck pretty close to our structure.
When we finally get to see what Jesse experienced while he was away, it's him out in the water. So for you as the director, where are you when that's being filmed? Like, are you in the water? Are you on a boat that's right nearby? You know, how does all of that work?
A little bit of everything. We Luke is from Australia. He was born in the water. I think his dad would get in the water still to this day and swim. And so we had a crew that was very aquatic. So we had divers on our crew, so we could really circle and get in there. We tended to be just off on the beach side where we were getting remote. And sometimes when you're further out, we didn't want to disturb with having an extra boat and all of that. So we had all of our safety divers there. They would film and then come back in to the beach where we were, and we would look handheld at the footage and be like, great, try this, do that, try that.
Yeah, because I was seeing that and I was going, that doesn't look like green screen or blue screen. I know a lot of productions will do that to control the elements, but I was going, I think they're really out on the water for
No,
this.
we were really out on the water. Greg Gardner, also who shot She's the Man, my DP who I love. Greg is a huge diver. And so really had gone up and down the coast by Wilmington so we could find the perfect place to do that. And you're really always looking for the right amount of water where you can walk in safely, where you can swim safely, and also where there's no real landscape. You're not trying to paint out like, oh, there's a massive home development over on that side. Oh, that. So we spent a lot of time trying to find the perfect place, and we were really happy when we found it.
Were you filming it on the East Coast or?
We filmed it all in North Carolina, all in Wilmington. We filmed some of it in Acton, Massachusetts, where the book takes place. And we filmed The Lighthouse was about 5-hour drive up the coast in North Carolina.
I was looking through the press kit, and you gave this really long, beautiful statement about how this story is very personal to you. Would you like to share on video maybe an expedited version of that personal connection you have to the material?
When my grandfather died, my grandmother never dated anyone else. She felt she had one true love. When my father died, I was 16, and my mom didn't go on any dates. She certainly could have, beautiful woman still. She was in her late 40s, and when he passed away, she took the same approach as her mom, which is one true love. When she was 70, she let my brothers and I know she went on a date. So that was literally 2.5 decades of not dating. And all of a sudden she met a man who was lovely, and they went and played tennis, and then he proposed eventually. And we all had different feelings. You want your mom to be happy, but we had never seen her date. And what does that mean about her feelings about my father? What does any of that? And when he proposed, he not only spoke to my older brother for permission, but he took my mom to the graveside where my father was buried and asked for my father's permission. And from that moment on, I just knew my mom could have two great loves in her life. And Richard became an amazing part of our family. He passed away not too long ago, and my mom is still with us. And my dad's birthday was the other day. He would have been 98. And my mom and I were talking, and she was just going on and on with all the wonderful things about what that marriage was and what their life was. And so I know her time with Richard did not step on her time with my dad. And I think that's what got me about the book, which is we meet so many different people at a certain point in our life. And I think once Taylor was really smart in that the approach of the book was, not necessarily about who should Emma choose, but where is Emma at this point in her life? And we all look back and think about people we've dated maybe in the past and thought, I can't believe I dated that person, but probably in those period, that was amazing. And I think that's what makes the movie and the book so universal. And I love now that exploration that maybe not for everyone, but you can have more than one true love in your life, and it doesn't take away from the previous love at all.
I wasn't familiar with the source material when watching the film for the first time, so I really didn't know who she was going to choose.
Right.
I would have chosen the other way, but it's not my movie. I'm
you
not
know what?
I'll
be honest, that's what I sort of love, is that there have been lots of, Team Sam, Team Jesse, and the notion of every step of the way, we kept saying, if we ended the movie right now, like if that was it, we could argue, oh, I know who she's going to choose. And it really had to go in the manner it went journey-wise, but every day we wanted it. There were cast, there were crew who would be like, I just want it to be very clear, I am team. And we're like, got it. I understand what you're rooting for. And I appreciate that as well.
I think that sometimes romance as a genre, or as like a subplot within a story, perhaps from a different genre, is sometimes looked down upon. Do you have any thoughts about why that might be? Or because I love a good romance, but I mean, it has to be done well, so I get picky if I think it's just put in to be put in. But like every James Cameron movie is a love story, it's a romance, even though he's known as the action director. And I'm going, that's objectively not the first thing you should say. He's a romance director, but I digress.
I think it's such a valid point to be made. I think that in general, it's all subjective. So everyone that watches, whether watching with a critical eye or just a fan eye, or just, I just caught this, didn't know what it was, so I thought I'd watch it. We all, I think, put our own personal spin on everything we watch. So I think there are people who watch a James Cameron movie and probably don't see the romance at all. I think they're just like, and then that blew up, 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 then they kissed, then that blew up, and then that blew up. I think that our job is to try to tell whatever story we're telling as honest and true as we can. With She's the Man, we were telling Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and we wanted those characters like Shakespeare created to understand that I get why she's falling in love with him. At the same time, when she's with Olivia, I get why there is this connection that feels so strong. So that at the end of that movie, when all of the reveals take place, and we have a lot of people whose feelings are hurt because they feel they have been lied to or betrayed emotionally, our job is to try to wrap that up. And here in the same journey of, I want audiences to go on this journey with Emma and be like, what would I do? What would I do? I'm a sucker for a good romance, but like you, I really want to come away from it being like, I did not think I would find myself crying, but there I was crying, and I'm not going to talk about this ever again to anybody. But sometimes I also know I have probably watched a romantic movie and I've been in a bad place, like not liking romance at that moment, or just had a fight with my significant other, or just broke up. And then the last thing I wanted to see were two people be like, we can make it work. And I'm like, no, you can't. You absolutely cannot make it work. And I'm going to leave right now. I need a movie in which breakups just happen. But I appreciate everybody who's willing to go on the journey.
Well, and I also appreciate that, you put the same amount of effort in as a director, even if it's a smaller, more kind of indie budget film, because obviously, you watch a film like this and it's like, I know they don't have like $300 million to make this movie, but there's effort being put in. So
it's our job. I come out of theater. So in theater, I've said sometimes you get 4 chairs and a table, and that's like the biggest expense ever. So by the time you start doing television and film, and they're like, do you want some soup on the table. I'm like, I can have actual soup on the table. I would love soup on the table. I feel our job as storytellers is whatever our canvas is that we're telling, to just tell it as best as we possibly can.
And then one final question, if you will allow me to indulge my own like inner child. Looking back on working on She's the Man across your, your larger filmography, what stands out the most to you about why that film is so unique and why people still, after all these years, we love it as much as we do?
I think sometimes it's all about the perfect stew. I think we had an amazing cast that have all certainly continued and shown all of the various levels of their talent. We had amazing adult actors coming in. Our amazing Kiwi and Karen, who wrote the script, did such a brilliant job and have written so many other brilliant comedies. And Shakespeare, that guy kind of knew what he was doing. Whether it was a guy or a girl or whoever was Shakespeare, Shakespeare wrote a remarkable story that is so well crafted that all we had to do was do it. Matter of fact, when we first got to rehearsal in Vancouver, the first thing we did was focus on 12th Night. Everyone had that script. We watched 12th Night movies. We embraced 12th Night before we even started working on She's the Man. So I feel like what audiences have seen since then, and we're so blessed and honored every time fans continue to quote movies. I think it just the other day, I think we came out 18 years ago. And so I think that people have found it and quote those lines to us. And that's the best gift you can ever hope for, I think, as a filmmaker, is that something you did impacted somebody. Because I know as a kid, for me, movies like Animal House and Jaws and Raiders of the Lost, like those movies were it for me. So if I can stay a little bit in your head, I will forever be grateful and thankful that you let me in.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Andy. I'm going to let you get going because I'm sure you have lots of other interviews to do, but it was, a childhood dream, like wish fulfillment moment for me, like very full circle. So thank you so much.
Now that we know each other, I hope we get to talk again.
Oh, I would love that. I have an absurd amount of questions about She's the Man. So, congratulations on One True Loves, and, best wishes for the film's release.
Thank you. I appreciate that.